Some of you may know me. My name is Bernard Clinton. I've been working with Sean with the camp for about 15 years now. And as we transition to the speaker series, and without further ado, let me just talk to you about Dr. Harris. He was here in August with us and spent at least an hour with some great information. So I hope you have some paper and pen, because he's got a lot of chunks of information for you. And today our topic is mistakes. So a little background about Dr. Harris. He's a certified internal medicine physician and a pharmacist. And he also, some of his finite areas are primary care, biological hormone replacement, wellness. All right, without any further ado, Dr. Harris, you got the stage.
Oh, thank you. So thanks guys for joining us on this lovely Tuesday evening. I'm Richard Harris. I am an internal medicine physician and pharmacist. I focus more on the holistic side. My goal is to get people off medication and prevent disease and not throw medication and pills at everything. And one of the biggest and most important things that we do is nutrition. I always tell people nutrition is the king of wellness, exercise is the queen. And your inputs always determine your outputs. So how healthy you are is determined by what do you do? And are you having behaviors and a mindset and a plan that is promoting health, or is what you're doing subtracting from your health? And what I wanted to talk about today was some of the key myths out there with nutrition and some of the things that I see that people are doing incorrectly. Number one, and this started off years ago, the if it fits your macros crowd was focusing on calories, but not food quality. There's a couple reasons why this is very important. Number one, we fundamentally have shifted the purpose of nutrition. Nutrition literally means nourishment, to nourish our bodies. Now, because of marketing and the way big food works, that focus has been shifted into pleasure or a cure for something, or do this while you're watching TV or a game or something like that. We don't typically think of nutrition for nourishment, for fueling our bodies. And because of that, we don't focus on the quality of our foods. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, I tell my clients to eat single ingredient, nutrient dense food. And what is that? That's stuff you don't need a label for. You don't need a label to know what broccoli is, or Brussels sprouts, or cauliflower, or nuts, or fruits, or chicken, or turkey, or salmon, or fish, right? When you just focus on the calories, you are missing out on the quality. I tell people this is like saying all cars are the same. It's a car, it gets you from point A to point B, doesn't matter. Well, so, a Bugatti is the same as a Fiat? No, right? We know that they can have different purposes, different properties. They can contain different engines, different suspensions, different tires. The list goes on and on and on. It's the same thing with our foods. And this is important because it's estimated that 90% of Americans are missing out on key nutrients. Again, nutrition, nutrients. The single ingredient, nutrient dense food has all the nutrients in it, yet it's in smaller amounts than it used to be. Our soil doesn't have as much nutrition as it used to because there's more people, right? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. It just gets transformed. So all the stuff that's in the soil is now in these 7+ billion people there are on this planet. Plus, with the way we do most agriculture, we're not regenerating topsoil. We are destroying that. And so the food is not as nutritious. But the best thing that you can do in that regard is make sure you're getting your high quality, nutrient dense foods. Now, how I eat and like what I like to tell people is I have a home base, and my home base is how do I design a plate, right? Like if you look at an architect, they're going to design a house around the same similar structure, right? They're going to build the foundation first and then move on from there. And so I have my home base. And my home base is that half my plate is veggies. And that could be whatever veggies I like. I'm partial to Brussels sprouts and cauliflower and asparagus. I love kale, and putting kale chips in the air fryer is delicious. 25% of my plate is meat, and I eat all the meats. I don't limit myself. If you have reasons to do that, that's perfectly fine. But I get my meats from a source like Butcher Box, or you can use something like Eat Wild, which gives you local foods. You can use Imperfect Foods for your vegetables. It's a source that takes food waste and then repurposes it. So about a third of the food that we make in this country is destroyed before it even reaches the grocery store. Actually, the number one impact on carbon emissions is food waste. We waste a third of the food that we produce in this country. Why? Because a grocery store wants your tomato to be nice and perfect in this shade of red and round and have no imperfections. But that doesn't mean that tomato still isn't good. So Imperfect Foods takes that and takes those foods that the grocery store doesn't want, that's still perfectly good, and then sells them to you at a discount. And you get a box shipped to you every single week. I don't have any stock or any interest in this. I actually pay for it just like everybody else pays for it. And same thing with Butcher Box. They don't pay me. I just pay for their product because I like their product. And then the last 25% is fruit and starch. And one of the things that we tend to do is myth number 2. Focus on food quality, but not calories. And this is important for people who are trying to make body composition changes. Now, I know a lot of people are very interested in fat loss, right? They want to lose additional body fat, and for good reason. We know that extra body fat is associated with cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and dementia, falls, fatty liver disease, heart disease, strokes, you name it. But I'll have people go and say, well, I'm eating all the right things. How come I'm not losing this body fat? And I say, okay, well, have you counted your calories? And they go, no. Well, if the needle isn't moving, then you must be not doing something completely correct. And so what I'll do is I'll have them count their calories for a week. And I've seen it multiple times where people were eating the right things. They were just eating too much of the right things. And just like the old saying, too much of a good thing isn't necessarily a good thing. And so if you're switched and you're eating nutrient dense foods and your goal is fat loss and you're not losing weight, count your calories, because you may be eating more calories than you think. I've seen people who are doing this who are eating 3,000 calories a day when they really needed to be eating 1,500, 1,600, something like that. So I always tell people what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to count them in perpetuity. I only count when I want to change something. If I want to lean up, I start counting. Otherwise, because I eat nutrient dense foods, I do what we call intuitive eating. I eat what my body tells me it wants when I want it. And that way I'm getting the signals for nutrients. In fact, there's a really interesting data that if you go back to point number 1, if you're not eating nutrient dense foods, it actually makes you hungrier because your body can't tell you that it needs zinc or B vitamins or magnesium. It's going to tell you to eat. And if you're eating nutrient depleted foods, you can eat a bunch of them and still be hungry an hour later because you're not actually hungry. It's not telling you I need calories. It's telling you I need nutrients. The third mistake I see people make, and this is a big one, I see this one all the time, is over consuming natural sugar. And typically I see this through juicing. Most people do not juice correctly. And I'm a big fan of fruits. I love fruits. I love berries, some citrus fruits. I get most of my fruit through berries. Berries are very high in antioxidants, polyphenols, flavonoids, anthocyanins. All of these things help reduce blood pressure and cardiovascular risk and stroke risk and cancer risk and dementia risk and all of these types of things. But just because it's good in a certain scenario doesn't mean it's necessarily good in another. If God wanted us to drink blueberries, he would have made them liquid, but he didn't. They're solid. And so what happens when you juice is a couple things. Number one, it takes about 2 to 4 hours for food to get through our stomach. It takes about 6 to 8 hours for us to absorb it from our intestines. That's solid food. When you ingest something as a liquid, now it gets through your stomach in 15 to 30 minutes, and then maybe 1 to 2 hours through the intestines. So let's just say that you have a sugar load, which there's sugar in fruit, it's natural sugar, and you were spreading that over 12 hours. Now you're spreading that over 2 hours. What does that do? That spikes up your blood sugar. This can lead to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the root cause behind diabetes, but also it's implicated in heart disease and strokes and cancer and Alzheimer's, lung disease, obesity, diabetes. And so what happens is when you juice and you're only getting in sugar, you absorb that sugar very quickly. It dysregulates the natural absorption process of the stomach. And then you're also, if you're buying store-bought juice, you have literally no idea what chemicals they use, what it's transformed with, how it's processed. And a lot of times what they do is they remove the pulp. The pulp is all the fiber. Most people don't get enough fiber. The recommendation is 25 grams of fiber a day for women, 38 grams of fiber a day for men. And fiber helps us move things through our gut. It helps detoxify. So fiber will bind up toxins that are in our foods. Fiber intake has been associated with balancing our cholesterol and our blood lipids, like our LDL, our HDL. It's also been associated with balancing out blood sugars. Why? Because fiber slows down what we call gastric emptying. Gastric emptying is just that, your stomach emptying. And intaking fiber helps us move things through our stomach and our intestines at a normal pace. And so when you remove that fiber, and then you've just gotten yourself like a 40 or 50 gram load of sugar, which is not uncommon in juices or sweet teas or sugar sweetened beverages these days, you absorb that very quickly. It spikes your blood sugar. You get a surge of insulin, and then you get tired, you get sleepy. And over time, that can lead to insulin resistance. So I typically tell people to avoid juicing, especially at first. Once I know they have a healthy set of behaviors, then we can incorporate some juicing. And if you're juicing, make the juice yourself. I'm a big fan of making stuff at home. Making stuff at home is probably the only thing I don't do with the 80-20 rule. Like 99% of the time, I'm making my own stuff because I can control exactly what's in it. I know exactly what's in it. So if you're juicing, you have to make that juice look like a meal, because not only does fiber slow down the absorption, so do proteins, and so do good fats. So we need to, when we juice, make it more vegetables. I always tell people when you juice, it should be about 70% vegetables, 70-80% vegetables, and then 10% fruit, 10% a good source of fat, which can be avocado. And avocado actually adds that smoothness to it. And so it actually looks and tastes and feels more like a smoothie. The other thing you can do is add MCT oil or coconut oil, and that adds a good source of fats. And then you want to add protein to it, because this is going to start to look more like a complete meal. And then you're going to get more satisfaction. The other problem with straight juicing, if it has these things removed, is you don't get distension of your stomach. That's how you send the signal to your body that you're full, that you've intaken a meal. You have nerves all around your stomach. And when that stomach begins to fill like a balloon, it reaches those nerves. And that's when you send satiety signals. There are hormone changes that happen. There's a hormone called leptin. Leptin is how we know that we're full. There's a hormone called ghrelin. Ghrelin is released when our body senses that we need to intake calories and nutrients. And that signaling doesn't happen like it should if we don't get stomach distension. The other thing is the protein and the fats slow down gastric emptying. So, and you get more like the normal emptying of your stomach and the normal pattern. And that's why I tell people to be careful when they juice and make sure when they do juice, they have it like a normal meal. The other problem with juicing is it's super sneaky. Going back to problem number 2, it's easy to overdo your calories when you juice. Because it's liquid, it doesn't feel like a meal, but you could still get in easily 300, 400 calories liquid. And if you're wanting to lose body fat and you're at a 1600, 1700 calorie as your plan, well, all of a sudden you juice and that's 1/4 of your day's calories right there. So it's something that can sneak up on you in a hurry. And this brings us into point number 4. And this is a long conversation. I'm going to try and keep this brief, and that's fat phobia. We were wrongly indoctrinated that all fats are bad. So I'm going to tell you this. There are essential fats, meaning there are fats that our bodies cannot produce that we absolutely need to function. We need fats to help make cholesterol. Cholesterol is in every cell in our bodies. It helps stabilize our cells. It's also the foundation to some of our proteins. It's very important for making our sex hormones. All of our sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, are based off of cholesterol. Now, most of the cholesterol we have is recycled from our own body. We're very good at making cholesterol. On average, the average person, 75% of their cholesterol levels are what their body's making and recycling. 25% is what we intake. But that still means that you have a portion of your cholesterol needs that you need to take from foods. And we get those from fatty foods. Another thing is, in this regard, omega-3s. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of omega-3s, fish oil, EPA, and DHA. EPA is best thought of for being really good for the brain. DHA sorry, I had that wrong. DHA is really good for the brain. EPA is more for anti-inflammatory action. These fats help lubricate our joints. Our bodies make a lot of oil. We have oil in our